Okay, we are going to thread for a 3-thread flatlock narrow. Anytime we do a flatlock stitch, there is a little bit of difference in the threading. So as we look at the card here, we are going to be threading our needle and our upper looper through the upper looper area here. So that is a little bit different than what we traditionally would do. So it's important to pay attention to your card, and it's also important to pay attention to the direction of the threads that we have. So we were threaded with the subsidiary looper because we did a 2-thread flatlock before. We're going to need to make sure that we disengage that. We also have moved our needle position from the 1 position to the 2. And then we are going to adjust the width of the stitch and all of the different things that we have to do with that. So we're going to start with threading the machine. So I'm going to turn the machine to threading. I'm going to turn the hand dial towards me until everything clicks in place. And now we're going to start threading. So I'm going to start with my lower looper. I've got red thread in my needle. I've got blue thread in my upper looper, and I have white thread in my lower looper. This will just help you determine what part of the thread I have where. So this is going over here into the lower looper. So we've got that threaded. And again, we had engaged the subsidiary guy. We need to disengage that. So I'm just going to push back and then pull up, and then it's going to swing back around. And we know that it's disengaged because it's hanging out over here. So now we're going to take our thread for our upper looper, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to pop that into the tension disc, and we're going to bring that down here, and that's going to go in the upper looper chamber here. Okay, once we have that in, we're going to go ahead and get that over here. So we know that we have that threaded. Now we need to thread our needle, but our needle is not going in the usual place. It's actually going along the same path as our upper looper. So I've got that in this guy here, and we're going to bring this all the way across the machine, and this is what we are going to thread our needle with. So I know it looks a little bit weird, but you just got to trust the system here. So we're in the guide here. I'm pulling the needle down, again, making sure that I'm in the overlock section. And this is going to go into my right needle, which is needle 02 on this machine. Well, I've picked the worst scissors out of my bunch there. All right, so I'm just going to grab the thread. I'm just going to hold this close to the needle hole. I'm going to turn that on, let that grab that, and then my needle is also threaded. We're all threaded. We've done our settings. I'm breaking the rule, and I have my blade up because it seems to work better for me when I do that. I don't find the need to have the blade up when I'm doing a 2-thread wide because I have a little bit more give, but a lot of times when I work this and I'm doing a narrow, you have such a small area to work with that it's easy for you to have like an edge of the fabric where it doesn't actually catch. Like you go to serge your 2 pieces and you find that there's just one part that just completely doesn't catch because it's such a narrow stitch. So by having my blade on, it allows me to put my fabric over that edge, and it will ensure that I actually have an actual stitch. All right, so this is what it looks like when you are finished. It's going to be a little bit loose on the edges, but now you are going to flip it open and you're going to rock it. So this is basically what we do when we have this stitch, is we just shimmy the fabric until it lays nice and flat. So sometimes you have to use your tweezers or something that will help you get everything to lay flat. Sometimes it's easier to work that from the back. If you don't like the look of the stitch, you can try adjusting your stitch length. Like, we could definitely pull this out a little bit so that the stitches weren't as close. If you're working with stretchy knit fabrics and your fabric isn't laying flat, be sure to adjust your differential. There's little pictures on the machine here, and essentially if your fabric is gathering, you go down to the bottom because you want it to stretch it. And if your fabric is stretching, you go towards the gather. So you go in the opposite direction of the picture. And so we just need to keep wiggling this until we get this to lay flat. So just like when we did the 2-thread version, the needle is going to be shown on the back here. I could have had this on the front if I had put the fabrics in, instead of putting them wrong sides together, we could have put them right sides together and had that as our front. This is typically what you'll see on ready-made sports, like leggings and things like that. This is a lot of times the stitch that you'll see. It's very smooth, so there's nothing rough to catch around the edges, and it lays very flat, so it gives you a very flattering look as opposed to a big bulky seam, and it'll be flat on the underside. So this is basically all you have to do to get your Flatlock stitch to lay, is just sort of shimmy and twist, and then you can use your little tweezers to get that fabric piece to lay a little bit flatter if it doesn't work. If you open up your stitch a little bit, so I'm at 3, if you made this maybe a 3.5 or a 4 stitch length, the pieces wouldn't be so close, the stitches wouldn't be so close together, so it will definitely help that lay a little bit flatter. So the only difference between a 3-thread and a 2-thread is the quantity of stitches. So we didn't have an upper looper on our 2-thread version. Technically, this would be considered stronger because you have that second looper in there, but honestly, they are both going to be very, very strong stitches. So you can put a lot of stress on this without the stitches popping. So it's a really great construction stitch. You have a ton of stretch in there without those threads popping. So if you are making garments, this is definitely a stitch that you're going to want to have mastered in your arsenal. In a little while, we're going to show you some fun ways that you can use the Flatlock stitch for decorating, but you can just change up your threads to decorate everything. You literally will thread everything exactly the same.